Hey everyone, I know we're all worried about what's happening in the world, but on the brighter side it is a good chance to learn a new hobby or catch up on an old one. I've spent the last month catching up on games, anime, manga, and of course light novels, which brings us to today's topic, another light novel review. I'll be following the same review structure from before, and I do plan to make this into a series, as it's a great opportunity to read and get lost in all sorts of bizarre and beautiful fantasy worlds. So to kick things off, I thought I'd review the first volume of Grimgar of Fantasy and Ash. So far I've been selecting some of my favourite light novel series to review, and I've also already spoken at length about the isekai genre and how I think it's wearing itself out, and we need more unique stories and genres. Which is pretty ironic that my first two reviews were isekais, and today's is too. But much like Shield Hero and Konosuba, Grimgar likes to play with genre conventions and expectations in interesting ways. I say Grimgar is an isekai, but that's really just a very basic setup for the narrative to come. The main characters find themselves in a fantasy world with little to no recollection of how they got there or life before they arrived here. However, they are aware this isn't their home, and it's summed up rather well in the prologue. He didn't know where this was. Where had he come from? How had he gotten here? He didn't know those things either. He couldn't recall. But there was just one thing he was certain of. The moon in that other place wasn't red. The world and characters are shrouded in mystery, and as such become a great motivator for me to continue reading. The other big motivator is the cast themselves. Having been thrust into this new world, you expect the familiar story beats of strong characters forming a dream team and overcoming increasingly greater challenges while forming bonds with each other. But Grimgar's cast isn't like this. Grimgar's protagonists are inexperienced and messy. They all sort of form together by accident as the leftovers that nobody really wanted. They may not particularly want to be in certain roles, but they take them up anyway as a team needs a certain balance. None of them have ever taken a life before, so a fight with a single goblin is a stressful and harrowing experience. They aren't fighting for fame or glory, they're struggling to survive in a world much greater than them. Even the monsters have their own ecosystems and culture. The world of Grimgar has so much history, and we're just now getting a glimpse at it through the fresh eyes of these 6 unfortunate individuals. Every victory is a struggle, as any loss can be significant when you can barely afford food and shelter. It's strange that I feel like your enjoyment of Grimgar is directly tied to the amount of isekais you read or watch prior to this. Having knowledge of the genre and how the story usually unfolds or how events are meant to go makes Grimgar's take on the genre all the more impressive. Grimgar likes to focus on things you don't usually think about. Like I had mentioned before, the ecosystem of monsters. There's a whole section on learning skills from instructors, and how it's not as simple as poof, now you have a new ability. It's a very realistic look at how an isekai would go with, say, the average person. Not everyone is some amazing chosen one destined for greatness, and the journey you are taking isn't being paved only by you. There's a whole world out there of adventures and unknown danger. It's strange calling it realistic, as the entire premise is literally out of this world, but that's just how it feels. It feels like a realistic interpretation of being stuck in another world. The initial struggles of taking a life, the determination of hunting so you can eat at night, the motivation to do what needs to be done when faced with difficult choices. This makes the main character choice of Haruhiro, the thief of the party and quiet support to the leader of the party, Minato, all the more interesting. You never think about what a thief would in the middle of a fight. How they are mostly unprotected, but they are also fast and can get into enemies' blind spots with relative ease. You never think about how a backstab needs to hit a vital spot to actually be effective, or how it's exhausting wrestling with and trying to pin a goblin down. You never think about party composition like Grimgar does, how their solid warrior is also stoic and needs commands, how their secondary attacker is also the loudmouth aggro magnet, how their mid-range hunter has terrible aim as her class choice revolved around having a wolf companion, how their shy and stamina-challenged mage only knows one elemental type of magic as it's far too advanced to learn multiples, or how the mid-range support of the priest can be the pillar that decides the fight, providing leadership and backup to all areas whenever necessary. They all have their own quirks, but they somehow make it work, even if victory to them only amounts to a few dead goblins. There is a genuine narrative flow too, but as the series is shrouded in mystery, there's also only so much I can talk about without spoiling things. I'll just say it really likes to play with genre conventions. Once again, that's also why I find it so engaging. Not knowing how something will play out is a great way to keep me going. Not to say that I don't enjoy a predictable narrative either, I just find the unpredictable ones as a breath of fresh air. It keeps me on my toes, and I genuinely worry about what lies ahead for this band of misfits. Even though the first volume is rather sizable, it's not a hard read. It keeps the story flowing at a decent pace, and has fairly short chapters, so it's pretty easy to pick up and read in intervals. If I were to put a tone to the writing style, I would say it's stressful. It makes me emotionally invested in the characters to the point that I feel stressed out reading. This isn't really a criticism either, as it makes the moments of relief so much better too. It's that unpredictability again, and it works so well for the narrative. It might not be super action-packed at every minute, but every little action and development feels deliberate to build the character's world and story, slowly building tension with every sentence. So if that puts you off, it might be a bit hard to recommend. The art for Grimgar is quite interesting. The illustrator uses a lot of sharp lines and blurred out images to create an odd-looking glass-like effect. It draws focus to specific parts of the illustration and works rather well. Haruhiro's tired old eyes come up rather frequently in the story, and so they sort of become a focal point when designing him as a character. He looks exhausted and bored at the best of times, while most of the other characters are filled with charisma in one form or another. There's some very interesting shading techniques and very wild hairstyles too. Because of that, it may be a bit hard to tell what's going on at times, but in the end it's just illustrating what's just been written, so it's easy enough to figure out who's who after looking at each image a bit closer. Interestingly enough, there aren't too many illustrations of characters as they're introduced, but there is a quick guide right at the start of the book to help avoid confusion later. Most of the illustrations are just there to punctuate a scene rather than used for introductions, so again there's only so much I can show without spoiling how this all unfolds. There's something special about Grimgar. Its awkward yet deliberate pace, its stressful and dark tone, its acknowledgement and subsequent abandonment of genre standards all come together to make a unique isekai unlike any I had read before. While I'm not 100% sure this is the first time an isekai had tried something like this, it's definitely the first time I had come across one like it. Because of that, it stuck in my mind, and now I compare most other isekais to it. It's not altogether perfect, but it's so different that I love reading it. I know it's not to everyone's liking, but I do think it's worth checking out. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed that video. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, as without support I really won't know what sort of content you all like to see. I'm trying to get back into the whole YouTube thing again, so thanks to everyone who has been sticking around or checking out my old videos. It may be a while before I start up game reviews again, but I do hope to continue novels and papercraft model building. I may even do some model kit custom painting as well. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and hopefully I'll be back really soon. Bye!